Do you need an adventure bike to have an adventure? Well, we've spent the last 2 days riding the Rebellion Road in Wales to find out. An epic 2-day road trip through the heart of the country, exploring mountain landscapes, sublime coastal roads, and fascinating sights along the way.
You can find out more about that route in our previous video, so check out the link in the description below. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the bikes, in particular, how much fun you can have on a sports tourer.
Well, clearly, if you want to go on a road trip in the UK and have the most adventure, you need an adventure bike like this V-Strom 1050 from Suzuki. So in this video, we're going to tell you how these bikes both performed, what they're best suited to, and how wrong Bill really is.
So of course, James, size is everything when it comes to adventure biking. My engine is quite a lot more powerful than yours is. The inline 4 makes 150 brake horsepower, 106 newton meters of torque, and it's just so much fun to blast through sweeping roads across Wales for 2 days. What more do you need?
I'm not gonna lie, the sound of you accelerating away on this bike was quite frankly intoxicating from the saddle of my bike, because it's that inline 4 just howls, doesn't it, when we roll on the throttle?
Yeah, and you have to keep that the revs quite high for the torque to come into play, the horsepower. You really have to wind it on. But once you do, and you've got that bit of road where you can just accelerate out of the corner and just howl down the road, mate, that's a thrilling adventure in my books.
I have to admit, I have ridden this bike. I rode it to Denmark over 3.5 days at the end of last year. I did enjoy it. It was a fantastic machine, but I was also surprised at how remarkably docile that engine can be when you need it to be, particularly here in Wales when you're riding through 20-mile-an-hour zones quite often.
Yeah, it can be pretty peaceful, really. It's so smooth. You know, it doesn't have heaps of low-down power, but it's very well behaved for a pretty highly tuned engine. And, you know, that's pretty welcome when you've got a slow-speed road and you're just cruising through a Welsh village. Sometimes that's what you need.
Well, I can imagine. And while size is important in life, but it's what you do with it. It counts, you'll learn that, son. And in this V-Strom 1050, I have a V-twin that makes 106 brake horsepower at 8,500 RPM. Peak torque is 100 Newton meters of torque at 6,000 RPM. And it is an incredible engine. One thing that Suzuki know how to do is make a sweet engine. And the power plant in this is thrilling. It really is. Now, the V-Strom doesn't have the most sexy, exciting reputation, but that's wrong. We need to change that thinking, because the engine in there has so much pump, particularly when you put it in A mode, which is Suzuki's equivalent as a sports mode. Twist that throttle and it hurtles down the road. It really does. B mode softens that power a bit, and it's the one I've been riding in mostly in Wales because, well, we've been mostly on roads like this where a slightly smoother throttle response is needed. But it's powerful, it's torquey, it's happy to ponder along through those 20-mile-an-hour zones, but up on the high-speed roads we were doing, it is a joy. There's a little too much engine braking in there, and I'd like to dial that down a little bit, but overall the engine in this bike has all the power I need, packed full of luggage, to have a fantastic time.
And I'd say that in Wales, you know, through some of the single track roads we've been doing, I have been a little bit jealous of your, you know, big bore, low end torque to really kind of hurdle you out of those corners. That's not really where the GX is at its best. But the V-twin in the V-Strom is, you know, that is its bread and butter, isn't it? One
thing it does fall down on, though, it doesn't have the sound of the GX.
Yeah.
It doesn't, when you open it up, it doesn't make all your hairs stand on end and your stomach leap. And yeah, I think it is a fantastic bike, but that is an engine. Now, one thing I am intrigued about on this bike, Bill, is the fact that this is the first ever production Suzuki to have electronic suspension. And we really have put it to the test, haven't we?
We have. We've ridden over every kind of road surface, from the smoothest, silkiest tarmac to pretty potholed and gravelly stretches of road. And it's performed admirably through all conditions. It is actually genuinely so comfortable. The suspension in active mode, when it's automatically adjusting itself based on the road conditions, does a beautiful job at leveling itself out, keeping you upright, keeping you comfortable. it's brilliant. But I do prefer it because you can set the rear suspension, load it up a bit, as if it's got pillion and luggage and yourself. But that also loads the front end a bit, so you have a bit more kind of bite into the corners, and that really gives the sporty character of the bike just a bit more oomph.
It raises the rear a little, doesn't it? Yeah. I have to admit though, when we were riding around a Lake Vyrnwy, which has got this magnificent road that twists around it, doesn't it? But it's rugged, I'd say.
Yeah, it's adventurous.
It's a road, but it is quite rugged. It's narrow, it twists, there's lots of ups and downs, and the surface isn't always the best. And we were ploughing along it, and this V-Strom just soaked up everything. It was really good at making me feel in control on quite, relatively tricky terrain. And I was looking in my mirrors behind me every now and thinking, how are you getting on this very road-focused sports tourer, adventure tourer, call it what you will, because the V-Strom just soaks up those roads and is made for them.
Yeah, I'd say the GX isn't as confident as the V-Strom is when you've got cracked tarmac and gravel strewn across the road. Not quite as sure-footed as I would be on a full stance adventure bike, but of course, I'm still here. I survived.
You still had fun.
Survived. I had a brilliant time. It's part of the joy, isn't it? It's kind of taking a bike where you might not expect it to be, but I love that stuff.
Out of your comfort zone. Because the V-Strom, it has 160 millimeters worth of travel front and rear. It's not the most generous suspension travel you'll find on an adventure bike by far. The DE version, the more off-road focused version of the V-Strom, has more. But I found for the type of riding we were doing, which is road riding on some pretty rugged roads at times, it was just spot on. And that is where the V-Strom is in its happy place.
And it's worth noting that I've only got 10 mils suspension less than the V-Strom front and back. I've got 150 mils suspension travel. So that's still a very plush ride.
She's a leggy sports tourer, isn't she?
She is, yeah.
One of the things I'm reminded of every time I jump on board the V-Strom 1050, and it's been about a year since I've ridden one, is how compact and manageable it feels. Out of all the 1000cc plus adventure bikes, I'd say it's the least intimidating and feels like a smaller bike when you're on it, even though you've got plenty of power. And that translates into the way it handles. Okay, a sports tourer or a dedicated sports machine is going to have sharper handling. But for a big adventure bike, the V-Strom is very agile. It's fun to flick between turns. And other than experiencing a bit of fault dive under heavy braking, which you do need to be aware of if you are riding aggressively, it's a really fun, agile, thrilling bike to ride.
Yeah, and I think, even though the GX, and particularly when I'm riding the GX, is more agile, it's got sharper handling, and that smaller front wheel makes it that more flickable through the twisties, you can still clearly keep pace when I've been leading.
I've been trying.
Yeah.
I've been trying, despite the 19-inch front wheel.
I think that says more about the V-Strom than it does about you as a rider, but hey.
That's it. And actually, I've got a full set of luggage here on the back, which is loaded down with a load of my stuff. Far too much for a couple of days away. But even then, the front end hasn't felt particularly light, and it's felt planted in the turns. So I'd give top marks to the handling of the V-Strom.
Now, it's worth keeping in mind that the GX is, it's got the long travel suspension, so it's not quite as flickable as, say, the GT version of the GSX.
That's kind of a traditional sports tourer,
yeah,
isn't it?
This is a bit more, for those who are a bit curious about the crossover world, as Suzuki, I think, calls it. It's a bit adventure bike, bit sports tourer, bit sports bike, it's a bit of everything. But, it doesn't compromise on any of that fun or comfort.
When it comes to comfort, I think the adventure bike has got it nailed. And my reasoning for that is, well, when you climb aboard any adventure bike, but particularly the V-Strom, you've got that nice classic upright adventure bike stance. My back's pretty straight. I've got a nice natural reach to the bars. Those bars are wide, and the seat on this bike is actually very comfortable. We've been putting in 10, 11-hour days in the saddle, and I haven't had too many aches or pains. My backside was, putting up a fight by the end of the day. But overall, the V-Strom is a really comfortable place to be, aided by some very good weather protection for this screen. Now, I'm always going to complain about the fact that Suzuki have put the latch for the screen. I don't know if you can open it, Bill, because I can't reach it.
I'll show you how you've done.
Look at that. There we go. And then
slide it up.
So it is adjustable.
It's an off-the-bike kind of job though, isn't it?
It is. It's nice that you don't need tools, but my God, why they did not just put the latch on the inside, I don't know. But apart from that, it really is a comfy bike.
Well, you might think that the adventure bike is the ultimate in comfort, but come check out the GX, because I think I've got something to show you that will make you change your mind. So, take a look at this seat. It's clearly pretty high off the ground, but what do you see about it that makes it stand out, James?
Well, it's a nice looking piece of saddle there, but yeah, you know, it's pretty plush, isn't it? You've got plenty of foam there. I'm liking these grippy side bits for your legs. Yeah, I'll give you that. It looks like a nice comfy seat.
Saddle up.
Can I mount your machine?
Yeah,
is that all right? All right, let's give it a go.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, doesn't that feel just like an adventure bike? It's a pretty upright stance, isn't it?
It is. It is a very natural stance, isn't it? And that's something I've noticed when we've been riding, is you haven't been hunched forward, elbows out. You have been pretty chilled. The leg bend angle is a little bit more acute on the GX than it is on the V-Strom, isn't it?
It is a bit, and I've noticed that when I've been spending these pretty long days in the saddle, there has been a bit of pressure through my wrists because of that forward stance, the sportier stance, but it's nothing that I can't put up with, and it's worth it for the fun.
I guess the payoff is you're in a sporty position when the roads do get twisty and fun, don't they? I can get both my feet on the ground. How tall did you say the seat was?
It's 845mm seat height, so it's pretty tall for a sports-oriented tourer, but still, it's pretty accessible for everyone. I'm 5'8", I can get both my feet firmly on the ground.
Yeah, well, I'm 6 foot and I've got a little bit of leg bend to spare there. I do have to put them ahead of the pegs.
It is a slightly awkward position, but overall,
a comfy seat. And if I put the side stand down, don't let it fall over, jump off. So the V-Strom has got an 855mm high seat height, but it's got a nice narrow seat at the front. So again, I put the side stand down. As a 6 foot chap, I can get both my feet on the ground. I wouldn't say with much leg bend to spare, but it does make a big difference when you've got a bike that weighs, I don't know, 240 kilos, a lot more if you've got luggage and a full tank of petrol as well. Being able to get your feet down, it is important, particularly when we've been maneuvering around plenty of narrow little roads. We've turned around on this road, what do you reckon, about 50 times?
50 times, yeah.
So far on this trip. But yeah, manageable seat heights and comfy places to be. Both bikes are designed for touring, and you can tell, can't you? You know, you've got more weather protection on the V-Strom, but both have pretty good screens. We've got heated grips, cruise control, wind deflectors, and a 20-litre tank here on the V-Strom. What's on the GX?
I've got a 19-litre fuel tank, and you know, I've been getting about low 40 miles per gallon, 43, so that gives me about 150 miles before I'm going to look to fill up, which is, you know, pretty standard for a touring bike.
Similar with the V-Strom, I think the official figure is 54 miles per gallon. I've been getting 46.6 at the moment. Again, you're looking for 150 miles to 200 miles between fill-ups, depending on your range anxiety. When it comes to brakes, I think, Bill, you've probably got me beaten as well, haven't you?
Yeah, they're pretty awesome on this bike. They're not razor sharp, they're not, you know, track level quality, but they're more than you need for getting around Wales. You know, going pretty fast through corners, pulling yourself up. They're nice and bitey. I like them.
Yeah, the Tokiko brakes on this bike aren't quite up to the performance of the Brembos on yours. But again, for an adventure bike, they're solid. They've got enough feel, enough stopping power for two-finger braking. They just do the job. Both these bikes are packed full of electronics. You know, on the V-Strom alone, I've got traction control, hill start control, cruise control. Both bikes have got quick shifters, and they're actually very good, aren't they?
I love a Suzuki quick shifter. They're so consistent and just can easily snick up and down. It just works so well.
I have had a few surges where I haven't quite matched the revs properly in the odd clunk, but overall, it's a very, very good system. And the bikes, I say, are packed full of so much tech to enhance your ride and also make it safer. But on the V-Strom, I haven't found it intrusive at all. I haven't found the bike doing things that I don't want it to do and I haven't told it to do.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I kind of feel like on the GX, I do feel like the computer's taking over just a little bit. Because there's this thing called roll torque control that Suzuki's added, which basically controls the engine's output as you're cornering using the 6-axis IMU. And so for things you're going to add a bit too much power when you're coming out of a corner, it will dial it back a bit, which makes for a very safe ride, but can also make the throttle response just a little bit inconsistent.
A bit unpredictable when you come out of a corner.
But you can just turn it off.
Which I'm assuming you did.
Maybe. But that also does get rid of wheelie control and traction control. So you can adjust those levels, but you can only get rid of them if you just turn it all off. So you might not want that. But aside from that, I mean, the electronic suspension is the standout feature of this bike. You've got semi-active damping, so it'll automatically level based on the road conditions. You can also manually set preload. So if you've got luggage, if you're riding with a pillion, or if you're just riding by yourself, you can adjust those levels and really fine-tune the suspension as you're riding. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the V-Strom doesn't have is that electronic suspension. One thing the V-Strom does have is a load-dependent control system. And what it basically does is detects the load on the bike at any one time and adjusts the braking accordingly. It sounds a bit nanny state. It sounds like it would interfere. But in reality, I haven't noticed it doing it, although it's been happening beneath me. And overall, the implementation of technology on this bike is very, very good.
Yeah, there's something about the V-Strom where it's a little bit more basic than some of the bikes are nowadays, but it's still got everything you need. It's got some really great enhancements to make the ride better and safer, but it's not intrusive, and it's still kind of just an old school V-twin adventure bike.
And that's one thing I think Suzuki should always be praised for, is that they don't throw the latest technology into a bike just for the sake of it. They seem to implement technology to enhance the ride, to make you safer, but it's never overblown, it's never overdone. And you can tell that when you're riding it. Both bikes come equipped with attractive, well-laid-out TFT displays, but again, Bill, I'm not happy because yours is bigger than mine.
It is, and it's quite a show of force, really. It's a lovely display to look at. It's got all the essential information you need. It's got the traction control settings, the active damping settings, which is useful for the electronic suspension. And it's just really laid out well, easy to read.
It's typical Suzuki electronics, or whatever you call it, in that everything you need is there. It's not overdone, and it's attractive.
Now, in terms of value for money, I think you get quite a lot of bike for the price that the GX is, which is $14,499. And you get, electronic suspension, you get a great engine, you get a great looking bike. I think that's a pretty reasonable price. But I know the V-Strom is a bit cheaper.
Yes, the V-Strom is £1,000 cheaper than the GS, although that still offers pretty good value for money. But if you're looking for bang for your buck on a big adventure bike, it doesn't come any better than the V-Strom 1050 in my book, unless you're looking to Chinese-made bikes. But let's stay away from those for a minute. Look at all the technology you get we've spoken about. Look at that beautiful engine. Look at the comfort. Overall, you've got a bike that will take you around the world. You've got a bike that will have incredible summer touring adventures on. You've got a bike that is perfect for weekends away in Wales, and it's also a great commuter. It's got everything you need and nothing you don't.
That's what the V stands for after all. It's a versatile Strom.
If you're going on tour, whether that's 2 weeks in the Alps or a weekend in Wales that we've been enjoying, we're going to need to talk about luggage. Now, the luggage on this bike is an optional extra, but I've got a full set of aluminium cases, Suzuki branded here, and they're great. They look cool, give the bike the adventure look, but they're also really handy to use. A nice flip top handle, always great for putting your gear in, finding what you need. But most handy for the last couple of days, Bill, if you could grab hold of my Bell helmet.
I can indeed.
I'll lift up the top box, and you can fit a full face adventure helmet with a peak in there and close it. And that has been so useful because we've been stopping at quite a few good places to eat and drink, and I haven't had to carry my helmet around with me.
Unlike me, unfortunately there's no top box available on the GX. You might have, James, your adventurous looking metal panniers on your V-Strom, but I've got my sporty, sleek plastic clamshells, which have plenty of space for all my weekend gear, my clothes, my laptop, camera equipment. I've got the tank bag as well. It's really all the space I need for a weekend tour of Wales or even longer. It
does look really good, I'm going to admit, because I think everyone would agree that the metal luggage from the V-Strom would not look good on this sports touring bike.
It would be a bit odd, hey?
I love the Calimux panniers, and I really, really like this tank bag, which I've used myself in the past, and it's just so handy when you're touring. But Bill, I have seen once or twice you open your clamshell pannier, which is perfect for all your luggage, and some of that luggage fall on the floor.
Well, you know, I've got my my buckle straps, but when I'm not the most organised of packers, so I've got my thermos in there, I've got my socks strewn in there as well. So it's probably my fault more than the luggage.
I think by its very nature, isn't it? Clamshell luggage that opens out. You need to be a little bit more organised.
Packing cubes, James.
Packing cubes, because I'm not even going to let you see inside my panniers because they're an absolute tip. And they allow me to be, and I love that about them. One of the first things I like to do with any bike is look to put crash protection on as soon as I get them, but putting a load of scaffolding on the outside of this bike wouldn't work, would it?
Well, it's a great looking bike, and I don't want to, cover up all the fairings with bits of steel and aluminium. So I've gone for a subtle approach, thanks to R&G, who've kitted out the bike for me. So I got some nice fork protectors there to protect the forks and the brakes in the event of an off. Luckily it hasn't happened. I got some frame sliders, got a bit of engine protection, and cotton reels. There's no center stand available on the bike, so paddock stand it is for when you're cleaning the chain and lubing it up, so that's a helpful addition. And I've got some just some tank protectors here to protect me scratching the tank, which I do have a habit of doing. I've also got the radiator guard at the front to protect that radiator from the front wheel flicking stones up, which has definitely been an issue on some of the roads we've been riding here in Wales.
The V-Strom 1050 does look good with crash bars all over it, but this bike didn't come with it. So I was genuinely grateful to R&G for coming and fitting some protection on the bike the day before we left. So I also have the fork protectors. It might not look like much, but it's designed to take the brunt of the force and hopefully stop your suspension or brakes from being warped or breaking. I've also got the radiator guard, which is filthy, and I think done a very good job of stopping a load of crud and muck going through. Elsewhere, I've got a little protector here, and I've also got protection on the rear wheel. But by far the most useful addition that R&G have made to this bike is this side stand extender, which has actually proved almost revelatory to me. I haven't had one on a bike before, and it's made putting the bike down on rugged, uneven ground so much easier, and you have so much more confidence in the bike staying upright.
Of course, James, the most important thing that we haven't talked about yet is the looks. And I've definitely got the better looking bike. It's got an aggressive front end. It's got this really angular, muscular fairing. It just looks like an awesome piece of machinery.
It does look very Japanese, doesn't it? It almost looks like it's out of a manga cartoon or something.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Blade Runner to it. It's pretty sci-fi. I really like it.
It is. And last night when you were riding behind me, and I could see you in the mirror in the dark, those headlights just looked menacing. I think they were so cool.
They look better than they perform because they're a little bit dim. They're a little bit sparse on the light, but they look so cool.
They do look very, very cool. Which brings me to the V-Strom. You know, I'm a fan of the way the bike looks. It looks like a classic adventure bike. It's got the upright stance, but it's got these purposeful, aggressive lines along the fairing. And Suzuki were the first brand to put a beak on an adventure bike, and they're still going with that theme. And maybe, okay, their headlight, yeah, it doesn't have the slick manga look of your sports tourer, but it's very functional, especially packed with this luggage. I just think the V-Strom looks ready to travel anywhere you want it to.
So, James, at the start of this video, we asked, do you need an adventure bike to have an adventure? And I think over the last 2 days of riding, proven to, no, you don't. You can have an adventure on any bike. And the sports tourer, this GX, has proved to be a fantastic companion.
Yeah, clearly you can have an adventure on any bike, as you said, but what I will say is that the V-Strom has just been magnificent over the past couple of days. I think it goes under the radar a little bit, but I don't imagine anyone would buy this bike and be disappointed with the choice. It's so capable, it's so much fun, and I've once again fallen in love with the V-Strom.
Yeah, and I will admit that I have been a little bit jealous about the versatility of the Strom. You know, when we've been on those gravelly roads, the tight, nadgery single track, you know, you can do it all on a V-Strom. You can do it all on an adventure bike. But I've still done it all on a sports tourer, and I have a bloody good time doing it.
Yeah, and even if my head and part of my heart has fallen for the V-Strom once again, I just look at this thing and I just think the 8-year-old kid in me goes, that is a really cool bike. That's a bike I would have had a poster of on my wall when I was little.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to choose with your heart, not your head.
But choosing with your heart would also get you a damn good motorcycle.
Yeah.
Both these bikes are incredibly capable and they're a hell of a lot of fun to ride. And unless you've got off-road riding in your future, then they would both make good choices. But to come to some sort of conclusion on this video, my take would be, if you're looking to travel big distances regularly, perhaps with a pillion and a hell of a lot of luggage, the comfort of the V-Strom, the stability, the predictability of this bike would make it a better choice, particularly if you're continental road touring day after day covering big miles.
I agree. I think we can say that this is a bike for traveling and exploring, and this is a bike for riding. And if you're going down to the Pyrenees or the Alps and you want to explore the twisties, hit some hairpins, you know, this will probably perform better.
But crushing bigger miles, longer distance adventures, I'm taking the V-Strom every time, and that's the type of motorcycling I most enjoy.
Well, whether you choose the adventure bike or the sports tourer, you're gonna have a great time. And all this talk about riding has made me really want to saddle up, and we've got this incredible road just stretching out ahead of us. So what do you say? Should we do it?
Mate, let's do it. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.